Hello traders, I am back, and today we're going to be talking about what I believe is the greatest indicator of all time, the aggregated predicted funding rate. I love this, and that's why I've made so many videos on this, because as you guys know, I'm constantly researching for higher alpha plays. Where can we get a lot of edge in the cryptocurrency market, and how can I release it to you guys to give you guys as much help as possible. Speaking of that, courses are in the link below. A lot of them are tailored for different kinds of trading needs, whether it's order flow, beginners, or more complex things like different kinds of arbitrage with delta neutral. But, side tangent. So let's dive into what is the predicted funding rate for the maybe 20% of the audience that doesn't know. And then for the 80%, don't worry, I'm going to show you everything that you probably are wanting to see. And I'm also going to tell you how to interpret it and what to do in the future, whatever. Okay, so the funding rate is basically, when the funding rate is very positive, when you see a green on the chart right there, that means that the perpetual futures are trading higher than spot. What that means in very simple terms is that the perp rate, which is what allows you to go 0 to 100x leverage, is that rate is trading at a higher rate than the Coinbase rate. The Coinbase rate where you can't use any leverage. That's a very simple explanation of the difference between perps and spot leverage, basically. And when the funding rate is very negative, that means that perpetual futures are trading far below spot. So why this is important is when there's two main reasons, and I'm going to tell you guys those, and then we got to dive into these charts. When the funding rate's very, very negative, that means that traders are betting that that futures market is going to be going much lower because it's trading below spot. It's representing the masses' view of the future. Typically, people are wrong and markets move against you more than they move with you. So with that being said, when the funding rate gets extreme, meaning many people think it's either going to be the price has to fall, i.e. a negative funding rate, or everyone's like, oh my God, price is going to rise, a positive funding rate, typically price goes in the opposite direction. Price typically rises when it's negative. Price typically falls when it's positive. Okay? And there is another aspect of this. When the funding rate is very negative, that means that shorts have to pay longs that exact percentage rate during a funding interval. And when I always get itchy on stream or on video. It's so annoying. And when the funding rate is very positive, what that means is that shorts get paid and longs have to do the paying for their positions on the funding interval. All right, let's dive in because I want to get into the weeds of this. That's much more fun. So RSR is something that has been trading really, really, really tightly to the funding rate, like really good. When this gets very negative, extreme negative, it's just such a good time to buy it, like right here and right here at the local market bottom. And when this thing, has a long period of positive funding, it's typically a pretty good time just to short or just to exit long. And as you can see here, this is beautiful. Now, when you interpret the aggregated predicted funding rate, which you can get by clicking indicators on this website Coinalyze, and then typing in this, thing right here. Two things you need to look for when you are analyzing what's going to happen next to price with funding. Extremes and consistency. Extremes are basically, is it getting a lot more negative than it ever has? Or is the funding rate getting a lot more positive than it ever has? Are we seeing a spike? And a quick example of a positive funding spike would be, I think it was Rose. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. So prices, uptrend, uptrend, uptrend. What happens at the market top? Funding spikes, great time to short, and goodbye Rose. Not the Titanic, but that went goodbye too. But Rose did not do well, did she? So, maybe here Jack stayed on the raft and Rose went down because the funding rate was too positive. All right, so someone clip that. That was amazing. Okay, so going back to things that are not terrible jokes, right here, RSR was trending upward. Had you seen this, what do you think? Well, what you should be thinking is that we've never seen such a negative funding rate. It's probably a phenomenal time to buy. And what ends up happening here is if you had bought when the funding rate was getting insane at like negative 0.3, price just rises like a bunch more. Now the funding rate's getting a little bit more positive, which is making me a little bit more bearish, or at least thinking that we're going to consolidate on this asset. But if anything, I think maybe consolidate or bearish, but if anything, more bearish. But something super interesting, if you're really interested in this, is the funding rate did not go positive at this local market top, but let me show you in the 15-minute. But you can see that it got a lot less negative, and that's a sign that the trend is dying, that more people are buying into longs. That's why the funding rate's getting closer to zero, and that it might be better to close your longs into maybe short. So that was a sign. But then, had you shorted, you would have been like, wait, what? Why is the funding rate that negative? That's insane, It's even more negative than before. So this one's kind of a wild card. With anything, I'm leaning a little bit more towards short, just because it's got a positive rate right now. So, okay, another one, FTT, a much more popular coin. I don't want to spend a lot of time in this. It's pretty good, but you can see here, extremes and consistency. The extremes when funding was very, very negative was actually a really good time to buy. Very, very negative did happen, in the short term, it's a very good time to buy, that is. I need to be careful with my words. So you can see when this got very negative, price rose 13%. Got very negative here, all those nasty wicks, price rose like 20%, right? So another one was here. You get it, price goes incredibly negative right there. Great time to buy because, price up 12%, blah, blah, blah. Here, what happened? Price went very negative at like a really good time, because if you had seen this large move down and then you had bought around here and then just waited, price went up like 15%. So what you also have to notice is not just extremes, extreme highs in positive funding and extreme lows in negative funding, but consistency. What do I mean by that? Well, if you see consistently positive funding, typically that's a sign that the market's going to fall, even if no extreme is present. If you see, consistently negative funding, then even though it's not spiking negative, it's probably more likely to rise. So an example of some, consistent positive funding, just look at FTT right here. Just everyone's so bullish and enthusiastic about it. You gotta get out of here or short when people get this happy, because then they're all gonna get killed. Lovely. And you can see here that the positivity, i.e. the green, kind of stays and then it kind of goes away as you give rise to this. But yeah, that's all I want to say on that. This one's great too. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one either, but Leo is pretty good. No, not the guy who has a rule no older than 26. That's a different Leo. This one, as a rule, you can see that the very negative funding, led to price rise, then it got pretty positive and price fell. Now price might just consolidate for a little bit or probably maybe go lower. Now, I already showed this one. Did I show you? Oh, wait, I was going to end on that. Okay, so let's end on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is pretty good when it comes to the correlation between the aggregated predicted funding and where price goes. So some looks at what that is. Consistent positivity right here did, yes, lead to a pretty nasty downtrend. One point that I do want to highlight is when the funding rate was getting very, very positive, price did continue rising, which is a little bit contrary to the theory. But had you shorted, you probably would have made money because, price went down more than it went up from that point. More importantly, though, this extreme spike in negative sentiment right here was just a great time to buy in the short term because, price rose. You get it? Yeah. But what I really want to show is this, because this period has been really good. Look at this. Negative funding, price rises. Even these choppiness, positive funding, positive, price falls, negative, price rises. Negative, price does nothing / kind of rises. Where else? Let's see. Oh, here, negative, nothing happens. Price maybe rises a little bit, but then we get positive funding and price falls. But let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Very positive funding, 0.04 on average is incredibly high. Shorting here, it's not the market top, but price went against you, 3.5%, then it tailed down 7%. from the point if you had shorted around there with that much positive funding rate, that probably wouldn't have been a terrible idea. So that was a sign. And then look what happened when price fell very quickly. The funding rate got very negative. Good time to buy, and then price went back up. So with with indicators like this, you should pair them with something, whether it's order flow or social sentiment like Twitter, trading against those people, or long short sentiment on Binance, or just option order flow, looking at large options being traded, looking where people are thinking price is going to go, whatever. But another indicator that you really can never forget is correlation to Bitcoin. With a lot of these altcoins, it's important to look at the predicted funding rate, but I would say what is actually equally as important is what do you think Bitcoin will do? If you think Bitcoin is going to rise and is currently rising, it's probably a pretty bad idea to short altcoins. Because the thing is, even if with a very positive funding rate on an altcoin, if Bitcoin is very bullish, that might just push that altcoin a lot higher. That's just how, it works. A lot of these coins are like heavily correlated to Bitcoin, especially things like FTX token. A lot of these are just ultra correlated to Bitcoin. But don't lose hope, because we have, the aggregated funding rate indicator for Bitcoin. And I will be linking this in the description. I love it. It's very easy to use, and all of this is free. I know I'm logged in, but all of this is completely free, and it's live access too. So, yeah. So that's going to do it for this video. If you want any more help in any particular area of trading, I'm going to list all my courses below, and you can kind of choose your character and pick whatever works for you. With that, this is a really phenomenal indicator, and extremes in funding and predicted funding can be pretty good to counter trade. And when there's a consistent, positivity or consistent negativity, that's also pretty good to trade as well. So with that, happy trading, and maybe you'll earn some funding from the funding indicator. I just thought about that. Smart.